Solitude is beginning to feel warm, like a tickle from my chest, like a fire slowly growing. Silence is beginning to be noise, like valleys stretching beyond sight, like water dripping from a faucet. I stare at the mirror more than before, pinching pieces of skin between my fingers, finding moments to laugh, to cry, to stare. I am beautiful, I remind myself, stretching a soft smile across my tight skin. I dance, I sleep, I howl, I breathe. After all, being alive has never felt more like a gift.
I'm Hallie Newman. I am a senior, class of 2023. I'm a double major in dance and history, and then I'm doing the writing certificate. What inspired me to create this piece was this summer I was working like a very traditional 9 to 5 in New York City. I was working as a journalist, so I was spending all day writing articles, and I had just had the experience of doing my first choreographic work for winter dance as a junior. And as I was just spending all day, every day, writing articles, I started to notice that there were parallels between the process of writing an article and editing an article and the process of creating choreography. You know, there's this thing people say like, oh, you want to make your writing really sing and you want the music to come out, and there's so much like musical imagery and writing, and I started to wonder about the parallels that there are between writing and dance. And so when I came back and was tasked with making a capstone as a senior, I wanted to explore that intersection between writing and dance.
I love it, and I think it's really clear then that it speaks to the next duet that you're going to do.
I think we started working on this in like October of this year. I had 5 dancers in the piece, myself included. 2 of my dancers are writing tutors in the Shapiro Center. Another one of them is also an English major. And then my other dancer is a physics and dance double major. And so my dancers had a writing background, which I was really appreciative of, and then they all had a dance background too. We started out playing with syntax. You know, sometimes you take the piece that you've written and you cut up all the paragraphs and you reorganize them to, you know, see what it looks like. I was really interested in playing with that process with my dancers, and so I built a phrase that we spent like a lot of our first couple weeks together working on, and then everybody would sort of like split up and rearrange the order. And so we were all working with the same movement vocabulary per se, but really just like changing it around and, you know, playing with what dancers and writers would call syntax. I think my favorite times in rehearsals were just like all the times where we were able to just like be really experimental. You know, like what is it like for like Carson to like drag me across the floor on a chair? We would just like play around, and we were like throwing the chairs around, which were sort of symbols of like structure throughout the piece. And yeah, I think we were able to like be really silly and experimental.
This brush of like, here, we pull again. I don't know.
The challenges, well, I did create them, yeah. The challenges that I faced during this piece, I think really just centered around, I'm really a nervous person. I don't really see myself as a dancer or an artist. The week of tech, I was so incredibly stressed. I was in my piece, which I didn't want to be in from the beginning, and then I was like, all right, well, I love my dancers so much and I want to dance with them. And we'd created this community together and I wanted to be in it. But I was on stage like freaking out. I couldn't do the movements because I was like evaluating where other people were. I was evaluating the lighting, and one of my professors, Patricia, who's also my advisor, was like, Hallie, like you actually just have to let go. You just have to be in the dance. And then once I started just being in the dance and having fun and telling the story, then everything went away. And that sounds really cliche and silly, but I think that's really what did it for me. Yeah, I think collaborating with my dancers was definitely the highlight of this process. They've all become such important people to me, and they were so like vulnerable and open throughout this whole process. They would bring in their journals and they would bring in their personal poetry that they'd written, and they would share that with us. And a lot of the phrases that you see in the performance are directly from the text that they brought. There's a lot to be said for not only sharing your own writing, but, you know, embodying that and then having your peers embody that writing and, you know, changing it, abstracting it. just the ways that they brought their own creative writing backgrounds to this process was really, really awesome, and just taught me a lot about collaboration in general. And I think the reason that this piece worked and the reason that I had such a good experience and that my dancers, I think, had such a good experience was just because of how friendly and kind people were towards each other. You can't really build a dance, especially one that has partnering, without trust between dancers, and I think that was really important to learn. I remember I had some rehearsals where I would get frustrated in the beginning because I would try to do things and they just weren't working, and actually what we needed to do was like sit down and talk to each other and learn about each other, and it just really built community with us all, and I really miss working with my dancers, and I think that was definitely the highlight of my process, was just like being in the studio together.